All right, hey, let's talk about some news. After rumors began bubbling up late yesterday afternoon, Microsoft confirmed this morning that it has, in fact, acquired SwiftKey. They're the makers of predictive keyboard apps for Android as well as iOS, with all 150-plus employees becoming Microsoft employees effective immediately. Microsoft says that it plans to continue development of SwiftKey apps as well as kind of integrate it, all the smart stuff happening underneath into its other services and its products, things like its workflow keyboard, kind of bringing, I'm imagining the predictive text aspect of SwiftKey into workflow. And yeah, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of SwiftKey. I've been a user of SwiftKey for years. So on one hand, I'm very, I'm thrilled to see that this happens to people that, that I've had on the show on All About Android before, and they're really great people and everything. On the other hand, I have questions about viability for app developers. And if SwiftKey, a team of 150 people creating a really great product, can't turn this into a long-term money-making plan, what does that say for kind of independent developers and all that kind of stuff?
Well, and it also sort of raises the question of, SwiftKey started out, it was like a $4 app, right? I paid for it. Mm-hmm. In fact, at TWiT, I think we all took a round at reviewing it. But they moved to a freemium model afterwards. So it's like, okay, well, now you can have it for free, and then we'll try to get you to pay for, kind of cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And so many small app companies do that. And it always seems to me like something in the model stops working, and they have to figure out better ways to get revenue coming in and get people to download the app, because maybe downloads have stalled a little bit because you kind of get all those people that don't want to pay $4 and are never going to. Mm-hmm. And then there's the question of, well, Microsoft says that SwiftKey will remain as is. The standalone apps are great. 300 million people use SwiftKey. That all sounds great. But they also acquired Sunrise, which is the calendar app that I use on my phone, and then announced that it's going to be shut down as a standalone app. It took a while for them to do that, but that's always the trend. Yeah. And that's always what I'm worried about, because when I like something, I want it to remain as is. And, the big company buying the smaller company is all fine and good, but you end up losing that thing that you liked in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it doesn't bode well for small independent developers either, having an idea and thinking, I could really make this into something, except for, I don't know if you really want to feel sorry for them. And the Financial Times reported that it's a $250 million deal, so sure. It's pretty good. So maybe they're just happy that it's gotten into the hands of people. Also, the idea...
Maybe that was always their plan. Who knows? But I think ultimately when you start something like this and you create a big team, your biggest ambition is that you create something huge that resides on its own and doesn't have to be acquired, that it can just be a money-making machine throughout the longevity of its existence. And it really seems like in the case of SwiftKey especially, a couple of years ago was like prime point. If their purposes were to be acquired, obviously it didn't happen a couple of years ago, but that was when they were at the top of the top. And things have kind of slid a little bit for them. So I can't help but feel like they could have gotten more at their peak. And now, as it's kind of coming back down, they didn't quite get as much as maybe they were worth, but it's just
$250 million. I mean, sure, it sounds a lot. Sounds like a lot to us, but it's not that much. I mean, right. SwiftKey, I think they raised just over $20 million. There are investors to pay back. It's, with all of the employees that they have, that doesn't sound like a runaway hit of an acquisition to me.
Right.
Well, the PR says they've saved over 100,000 years in combined typing time, which is amazing. But what they're also doing, and why Microsoft bought them, I think, is just the artificial intelligence piece of this. Just seeing how they can learn from what people are typing and predicting what they're going to type and learning so much about us so that they can make robots that will take over.
Potentially, maybe Cortana becomes, maybe this becomes a Trojan horse for Cortana on different platforms and integrating Cortana into the keyboard in some way, shape, or form. SwiftKey also, I know this is an Android app. I'm not sure if it was on iOS, but they have this kind of beta project. Actually, it's probably an alpha because it's in the title. SwiftKey Neural Alpha, which is essentially like a neural network prediction keyboard, and it was always just kind of like a test and, you know, not necessarily a full launch. And their ultimate goal from what they said was, you know, all the stuff that they learned from this is going to be integrated into SwiftKey. So I think you're absolutely right. A big part of this is kind of the AI behind it, because this is, you know, this keyboard in particular really aimed to kind of be predictive text better than what you are used to, you know, that can actually kind of look backwards at the context of the sentence and kind of correct it so that it's right after the fact, you know.
And Jason, you probably have a much better idea of how much third-party apps are beloved on the Android ecosystem. But, you know, for iOS, most people don't really use them. Now, I know you're listening, you're watching, you're like, I love my third-party, I love SwiftKey. It's like I know that some people do, but most people don't. It's cumbersome to switch between keyboards. You can't get rid of you know, iOS has never really been conducive to me. I try them all, and then I uninstall them after a couple of weeks because I don't like to toggle between keyboards. So I think that SwiftKey may have realized, well, you know, as far as standalone apps go, sure, you know, we'll keep them alive, but we may have reached our limit on that source of revenue.
Yeah, I mean, iOS, you know, allowed for third-party keyboards to happen. Obviously, SwiftKey was at the front of that. And then anything that I've heard about, just like you say, Sarah, the general kind of sense around alternative keyboards on iOS is never that it's an amazing experience. On Android, I can personally say that, yes, tons of people use these alternative keyboards and they are very devoted to them. They find one that works for them. SwiftKey is a prime example right at the top as far as, you know, replacement keyboards that people just, they find it works, and it's what they install going forward on whatever device they happen to be using. So yeah, it seems like it's a little bit different of a scenario. And if they broke into iOS and that was going to be a big opportunity and that didn't pan out, for whatever technical reason, or just, you know, iOS users just don't care to replace their keyboards, then maybe that's, you know, that's like a sign like, hey, maybe we've kind of reached a point here and we need to move on.
Right. I mean, maybe they'll make it better. I mean, that's the other thing we haven't discussed. It's Microsoft buying this, but, you know, not for Windows Phone. You brought up Sunrise, Sarah, and there's also Acompli, which was another email app that everybody loved that they turned into Outlook, which now I use regularly and I really like. So maybe Microsoft will be able to make it easier to use this on iOS.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still, I still think it's going to be bundled under whatever Microsoft product they would like to push on iOS. Microsoft is all over iOS, so that's not really that big of a problem. But, you know, again, going back to my Sunrise comment, it's like, I know that the best of Sunrise will be baked into Outlook, but I liked Sunrise the way it was.
Fair enough.